Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
It's getting harder, though, isn't it?
I do spend more time detaching than attaching.
Yeah. Dr. Shealy, it's great to hear your voice. Would you share with us, is there anything new in the world of Dr. Shealy, in the medical world, that you feel that you should share with us at this time?
Well, basically, the only new thing is the ongoing study on telomere regeneration by placing LifeWave patches on specific acupuncture points. We will be finished with that project in October, so I won't know the outcome. But in the pilot study, we actually got a smashing 8% growth of regeneration of telomeres within 6 months.
8% within 6 months, yeah. It's quite stunning. Now, what can you translate that into life expectancy years? How many years will that improve life expectancy?
If you've got a normal, healthy life, your telomeres are genetically programmed to let you live 100 years. But only 2.7% of Americans have a completely healthy lifestyle. So that's why we die at an average of 78.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, if we can do, let's say, 10 years of 8% a year, you ought to easily live to 150 years of age.
Oh, I don't think the Social Security Administration is going to allow that.
Well, I don't think our government's going to allow life. Period.
Well, that's quite a thought. It's a lot of people believe that, especially if Bill Gates has his way. I got an email from Gwyneth Isaacs in Australia and had a link to a video, a short video, a newscast video about the supermarkets in Australia, in Melbourne specifically. Shelves are about half bare, literally half bare. And people are saying, had I known that there was going to be this shortage, I would have bought more, or I would have, and they're complaining that, other people got in front of them because they didn't know. They didn't know that this shortage was imminent. And so the shelves are, literally unbelievably bare. Stores could shrink probably to 1/3 their square footage, and operate with the lack of stock that they have, literally. And that's happening in Australia right now, right this second. And it's obvious that it's coming our way. I believe that this heat wave that we've been having is damaging crops. I believe that we're going to start hearing about crop failures. Now, I don't have any inside information. I can just go from a gut feel and experience here on the farm that we're going to have some crop failures. Do you sense that as well, Dr. Shealy, or is it just me?
Well, certainly, so far, July is the driest month of the year. Mm-hmm. We did get 1.6 inches last week.
Wow.
And that's the only rain we've had all month so far.
We had rain last night, 1/8 of 1 inch, and it's gone. We haven't had it. Yeah.
Yeah, we got none last night, but it's where we are. And fortunately, my garden's okay because of my leaky hose.
Right. What I've been doing, Dr. Shealy, we have a small orchard. I think it's around 27 trees in the orchard, and we planted them on average probably 12 years ago, 10 to 12 years ago. And they were they were losing their leaves and they were in shock from the drought. So I took some 5-gallon buckets and I drilled a hole in the bottom of each one about the diameter of a number 2 pencil lead. Actually, maybe just a little bit smaller, not much smaller than that. And I'd fill them up, and I fill them up 3 times a day. And it's drip, drip, drip in the same spot where the roots are. And they're coming back. They're coming back beautifully. So they were suffering from the drought. And now they're coming back. So what I've been doing, unless you want to try this, I fill them up 3 times. I space it 3 times throughout the day, morning, around noon, and in the evening. So they get 15 gallons, 3 times 5 gallons each. They get that 3 times a day. And then I do it for 2 days. And then I move the buckets. Now I did it with 5 buckets, and that wasn't enough because they weren't getting enough water. So now I give them 2 days worth of water, and then I move, and I have 10 buckets now. I doubled the amount of buckets. So they get 2 days worth of water. So it's 3 times 5 gallons per day. So they get 30 gallons of water over 2 days each tree, and then those buckets get moved to the next group of trees. That's the way I've been doing it. Have you had to water your young fruit trees and nut trees?
Well, I don't have any young ones, and so
Okay.
I haven't watered. My best fruit tree must be about a 70-year-old pear tree. But it's doing well.
I'll bet those roots are deep, and it probably do really, really well, for quite a while through this drought. But we have not had that over an inch of rain. We had only 1/8 in 1 month, 1/8 of an inch last night, and it's all gone. I mean, literally, our grass is crunchy, and literally crunchy. When you step on it, it crunches because it's all dried out. Kind of like straw. That would be the visual of what our grass is like. Dr. Shealy, you have friends in the medical profession. Are they saying anything to you about the coronavirus, COVID-19? Do you know anyone who is, working in a hospital, and are they giving you any information as to what the real story is? Because we're getting nothing but mixed messages. We're getting nothing of leadership from the president.
Well, we're getting nothing but nonsense from the entire government.
On
the
everything.
CDC, the FDA, and of course the worst criminal of all, Fauci.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And my favorite story is a woman who sent a note that her son committed suicide and they signed him out as dying of the virus. That's typical, apparently, for these days. If they die, they call it the virus no matter what.
And that's an outrage.
Well, it's evil.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think a lot of the world is evil, especially in this country right now.
I don't remember an honest administration for most of my life. Now, it's possible. It's possible that the John F. Kennedy administration was partially truthful, but I don't even know that for a fact. But I can tell you from him on, it's been progressively getting more and more corrupt, less truthful. And frankly, if a person wants to plan, you need to be able to know what's happening in order to plan for what's to come. But if we can't get the truth about what's happening, it's extremely difficult to plan for what's to come. And there was a news story about the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, or Munchkin, however you want to pronounce it. I don't even know if those are right because I don't watch the news. But he is saying that the Payroll Protection Plan, PPP loans, and loans is in quote, those gifts from the federal government to people who have applied for them, all the loans under $150,000 each should be forgiven, meaning that's just a gift. Now, that's a huge problem. If all kinds of businesses applied for these loans and they squandered the money on gambling, and they did, some did, and there's a lot of fraud involved. If that's true and he wants to have these loans treated as gifts, no repayment whatsoever for all of them, the revolution should start right then and there. I mean, in full swing. Because that's paying off people who should not be paid off. The little people, the starving people, they didn't get it. Only the people in the know got it. And let me give you an example, Dr. Shealy, of what I'm talking about. The USDA has these, what they call programs for farmers. And they'll say, you know what, we got some money. And we are going to make it available for you to drill wells, for you to put up fencing, for high tensile fencing, barbed wire fencing, for you to put in cattle waterers. You know, I'm talking $30,000 at a crack. And they will give you 75% of it. And all you have to do is apply. But you have to apply for this program and meet their criteria, which means you're going to fence your cows out of the woods and out of ponds and out of streams. And when you apply, you get this money, and then you have some contractor put in the fence and the well and the well pipe and the waterers, etc. But what happens is the same people get these programs assigned to them over and over and over. Most of us wouldn't get them. And the reason we wouldn't get them is because we don't know about them. Because it's kind of a secret when the program's open. So it may open on a Monday at 9 o'clock, and by 9:30 it's fully sold out, meaning all the money's gone. Okay, so you have to know, which means you have to have relatives who work for the USDA, because it's such a secret, no one knows when these programs are going to open up. Well, the Farm Bureau, the insurance company, decided to have a fleet sale. And what they did was they put in the Farm Bureau publication that they were going to have a fleet sale. You could buy their vehicles, their used vehicles that their insurance people ride around in, cars and trucks. And it was published in the magazine. We got the magazine. We said, go to this website. We went to the website. There are no vehicles. What I'm saying is, oh yeah, they made it widely known that they were going to have this fleet sale. But it was after all the vehicles were gone. So who got them? Obviously, the insiders.
To me, this is average government these days. This is not an exception. Every single thing is contradictory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying, Dr. Shealy, is that the average Joe, the average guy and gal, has got to be frosted, because we don't have a chance. It's impossible for the bottom 93% to get ahead. It's impossible because of these stunts that the insiders keep pulling. And I believe that that's what these protests and riots are about. Yeah, it's about Black Lives Matter, and for others it's about White Lives Matter, and for others it's about Police Lives Matter, and for people like us it's all life matters. And yet it's also about the oppression by the government. It's the inside, it's called crony capitalism, meaning if you're a part of the inner circle, you get the rewards. And everybody else pays for those rewards that the inner circle gets. And I believe that's what this rioting and protesting and escalation is all about. Because we, the little people, have had it. Because it's not fair. And we're sick of it. And we're old enough to realize what's going on. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back. I've got some medical questions, Dr. Shealy, about macular degeneration when we come back. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us, medical doctor. Dr. Shealy, got an email from Joe in Canada, and he'd specifically like to know about macular degeneration, AMD, general eye health. What is macular degeneration?
Well, the macula is a tiny little spot in the retina of the eye, which is the focus of everything as far as vision is concerned. It is the fine-tuner, if you will, of vision. And nobody knows unequivocally the exact cause, but people go blind with it. There's all kinds of odd treatments, none of which are terribly successful in my experience. I'm talking about patients I've seen, not that I've had any personal treatment of it. But there is evidence that poor nutrition contributes to it. Lack of antioxidants is at the top of the list. So, people who don't eat veggies and fruits are more prone to it. And, of course, taurine. The eye uses more taurine than any other organ except the heart.
Okay, so what do we do to increase our consumption of taurine, Dr. Shealy?
Well, you either eat a lot of clams or other seafood. Seafood has more taurine than beef or chicken. Or you could take it as a capsule. You can take 1,000 milligrams, for instance, in people with certain kinds of hypertension. I'll use up to 6,000 milligrams a day of taurine. It's excellent. It's one of the best treatments for hypertension.
Okay. And is that available on your website, Dr. Shealy?
Yes.
Okay. So for Joe, and I don't know Joe's age, he's interested in, he may have it or may have someone in his family who has it. What is your specific recommendation, although we don't have a lot of information?
Well, at the top of my list is he should be taking Dr. Shealy's Essentials, Dr. Shealy's Youth Formula, Astaxanthin, and I would get ORAC Rich Greens, ORAC Rich Greens powder, and take a scoop of that a day.
Scoop, okay. Dr. Shealy's Essentials, Dr. Shealy's Youth Formula. Now, how many capsules of Dr. Shealy's Essentials? That's your multivitamin.
Two.
How many? 2 capsules. Okay.
Four
so, Joe,
of you.
2 capsules.
Four
of Dr. Shealy's. Yeah. Dr. Shealy has a youth formula, which is
20 milligrams of astaxanthin.
20 milligrams. Okay. 4 of his youth formula, which is vitamin C plus MSM. It's called Dr. Shealy's Youth Formula. Astaxanthin, 20 milligrams. And you mentioned, I was writing it down and I didn't get to it. What was the next thing that you suggested? I mean, besides taurine?
Yeah, well, I would say at least 2,000 or 3,000 milligrams a day. Can't hurt anything.
Okay. Of taurine. And then eating plenty of fruits and vegetables.
Yes. Especially the colored vegetables, the dark green or the red and orange vegetables.
Okay. And Dr. Shealy, we've mentioned this before about colors, and the saying around our house is, eat all your colors. And it may sound kind of goofy, but if we have greens, salads and greens and green beans and peas and things like that, that's one color. And there are other colors. So there are browns in nuts, okay? And there are purples in some onions. And we talked about the color. So the more vibrant, the darker the color, generally the better for you. Is that still true?
Yes.
Okay. So when we're picking onions, if, like in the good old days when we go to the supermarket and buy some onions, and we had a choice of white onions, sometimes Vidalia onions, sometimes yellow onions, and sometimes purple onions. Which would be the first choice, Dr. Shealy?
Purple.
Purple onions. There you go. And what about greens like in olives and blacks like in olives?
Yes. They're great.
Okay. All right, Dr. Shealy and I will be right back. I've got some more questions about antioxidants. And we'll make sure that, Joe, if you'd like to give us a call, please call us, 866-582-9933. Class, Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. NormShealy.com, N-O-R-M, as in Norman, Shealy, S-H-E-A-L-Y.com. Dr. Shealy, if our class wants to go to your website and buy some of the supplements that you talked about, for example, your youth formula, your Dr. Shealy's Essentials, and antioxidants, are they in stock or are you having difficulty getting them?
As far as I know, all those basics are in stock, yes.
Okay. Are there any supplements that are in short supply that you suggest that we jump on before they become
Well, there's certain ones that we can't get, but in fact, we're totally out of a couple, but they're not the most common. So, I know we've got all the basics.
Okay. All right. So the antioxidants, when you talk about them, for those new to the class, Dr. Shealy, what is an antioxidant and what does it do?
Well, antioxidants stop the excess oxidation. We thrive on oxygen. We have to have oxygen. However, in metabolizing our food and stuff, we produce free radicals. And every single person actually has free radicals passing out in the urine every day. Now, most people are running about a 3 to 5 plus, and you don't want to run above a 1 plus. So there is a urine test. We carry those also for measuring your free radicals. In addition to using the antioxidant, that is the vitamins we're talking about, etc., to reduce free radicals, using the ring of crystal, or crystal bliss, if you use that every day, reduces free radical production by 80%. So it is actually the single greatest antioxidant we know.
Okay, and Crystal Bliss is available right on your website, right?
Yes.
That's in stock, and that's in stock?
We have it, yes.
Great. Okay, and can you tell our class what is involved in using Crystal Bliss? Because some people may think this is difficult, cumbersome, way too much work. Can you explain to them?
Well, it takes 30 seconds once you learn the points. It comes with a color photograph that shows you where the acupuncture points are. It's in a tiny roll-on bottle about the size of at the best, your middle finger. And you just take the cap off and touch the points. Literally, once you learn those points, you do it in 30 seconds or less a day.
Mm-hmm. And what would happen, Dr. Shealy, if you didn't get all of the acupuncture points for Crystal Bliss? Let's say you got half of them.
Well, you're not going to get it. You will not get it, in fact. You've got to do all 12, all 13 in that case.
Okay. All right. And you can reduce your antioxidants by 80% by doing that.
Yes.
Okay. And that's available on the website, normshealy.com.
Exactly.
So, Dr. Shealy, do you know of any family who's actually had been infected with the coronavirus, COVID-19?
I do not personally.
I don't.
No.
I don't either. I called Marty Barrett. She's on the East Coast. She teaches biology at the college level and has for decades. So I called her and I asked her if what her update was, and she was going to be on with us last Friday, and she was unable to do it because her telephone system is down, not working properly, and they don't want she and her husband and children don't want telephone repair guy coming in. So they're working on getting that figured out, how to come back on the air with us. And what she told me was she had 3 biology students who came down with COVID-19. They actually got it. They tested positive for it, if that means anything. And then I said, what happened? Are they okay? And she said, yeah, they're all okay. But she said, but one of her students' fathers got it, and he died from it. So she was going to share with us not who, but what that experience was like, not the death per se, but how maybe it was contracted and what the symptoms were and how it was diagnosed and the interval between diagnosis and treatment, if any, did death occur. So that's coming up, class. We're trying to make that happen this week. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us about macular degeneration, Dr. Shealy? How about vitamin B? Is that something that we should be consuming?
Well, I think, of course, that's the top of my list as the number one enhancer or maintainer of your immune system.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good. And what product that you have do you recommend as a vitamin B complex?
Well, we use the vitamin D3 from Biotech, 50,000 unit capsules. If you weigh under 140 pounds the first 10th and 20th of the month, or if you weigh 140 pounds or more, once a week.
Okay. And what about vitamin B as in boy?
Well, now that's essential. That is in my Dr. Shealy's Essentials.
And do we get enough of it in your essentials, or do we need to add more to that?
No, you'll get plenty with taking 2 of those.
Okay. Very good. All right. I received an email from Amit Singh, and he is in our class, and he listens every day. And he had a question about air travel, traveling on airplanes. He knows that I'm not going to travel, and he knows that you travel only for business. Is that? And I think he'd like to know, are you still willing to travel, to give seminars, or have you stopped that, Dr. Shealy?
Well, it isn't a question of whether I stop. All the meetings have been canceled and converted whenever possible to online.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a trip
since
January.
How do you feel about these online meetings?
Oh, fair. I don't think they're nearly as good, but they're where we are.
Yeah, I was thinking about, an online Skype-type presentation that we did with James Wesley Rawls and Julia Shopick at one of our expos, compared to seeing Dr. Shealy at the meetup with, well over 100 people, maybe close to 200 at a time, with you in the center of the restaurant teaching us. But a huge difference to me, because we could see your body language better. We could, raise our hands and ask questions, right at the appropriate time without interrupting. It was great. So I don't see how it's a substitute, but I don't think it's, I wouldn't say it's a close substitute being online.
It's mediocre.
Yeah.
The best you can say is the best online is going to be mediocre compared to in person. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking at some of, Kathy in, Ohio had some flea and tick spray that she heard you talk about. She said equal parts of lavender oil and eucalyptus oil and tea tree oil. Mix them in an amber bottle, shake well, and she believes that's from you for fleas and ticks. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Shealy? For dogs?
Oh, yeah. Well, those things do work. They do, let's face it, the smell sensation is very powerful in its effect upon the brain and the mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about to prevent fleas and ticks from burrowing into our dogs?
Now, there I like cedar oil.
Okay.
That's what I use personally, is cedar oil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do too. And class, you can get that CedarCide, CEDAR side. You can get that on the internet, and that's where we get it.
That's what I got.
Yep. And have you ever? I mean, our dogs from time to time get lots of ticks. They like to go swimming. They like to run through the tall grass, and they come back with as many ticks and fleas as they can find. And so sometimes they won't let me take the ticks off them, depending on where they are. They show me their teeth. They don't want to bite me, but they're just saying, please, please don't do that, Dad. And so have you ever just put it, like a Q-tip amount, of CedarCide or cedar oil on a tick and have them back out?
Yeah, they will fall off over the next day or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to go. So that's available on the internet, Cedar, as in cedar, the tree, side. And we've had the owner of the corporation, Mr. Jones, on the air, and he's been great. So I'll see if I can get him back on. So for lavender oil, eucalyptus oil, and tea tree oil, what would that be used for, Dr. Shealy?
Well, they also can repel ticks. Ticks are funny little buggers. They don't like anything except themselves, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad used to say, those things are tough. They've got steel bodies.
Yes, they are.
They are. And you know what I try to do, Dr. Shealy, I've been totally unsuccessful for my entire life that I've been dealing with ticks. Whenever I see them on the dog, I bring them over to the kitchen sink, and let's say there is something I'm going to wash. Let's say it's a glass. I try to teach the ticks how to swim, and I put just a one drop of dishwashing detergent in, let's say it's a glass, and I reduce the surface tension. And do you know they can't swim? If you reduce the surface tension. Now, if you don't put detergent, they can walk on water. So not only do they have steel bodies, but they can walk on water. But if you reduce that surface tension with a drop of detergent, they sink immediately. And by doing that, I've never been able to teach one how to swim. Let's see. What about lumps under the skin? So as we get older, I've been asked by some individuals who pay attention to our class, what are these little lumps under the skin? They're not real hard. They're kind of almost like gelatinous, kind of like a fatty little bump.
Well, mostly they are lipomas or fatty tumors.
Okay.
I've had 2 of them.
Okay, and what, is there a danger?
They can rarely become malignant, but mainly they just slightly uncomfortable, and most of the time you just ignore them.
Okay. If you don't want to ignore them, what is done? Is there a procedure?
That's surgery. It's a very simple procedure to take them out surgically.
Okay, does that mean make a slit in the skin and, go digging? Is that what we're talking about?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Okay. And what would be the minimum size slice in the skin with a scalpel? Are we talking like 1/4 of an inch? Are we talking 1/2 an inch?
Oh, I think it's probably almost at least an inch.
Okay, so go for the full length of that fatty tumor, that lipoma. Class, Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy, I believe you mentioned a urine test for free radicals. Is that something that we can get from your website?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us how it works? What do we do?
It comes with a little plastic cup. You piddle into the little cup. Then you take they give you a little squeezy thing, and you take up enough to fill the little tiny glass tube, and wait 5 minutes. And you look at the color, and it comes with a chart.
Okay. Now, did you say piddle? Is that a medical term?
Urinate.
Yeah. Okay. So and you can get that test at normshealy.com. normshealy.com. So, Dr. Shealy, if a test comes back that there's an elevated level of oxidants, we'd want antioxidants. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. By the way, the test is called OXIDATA.
Oxidata. Okay. And when we take that test, do we get a chart that says, okay, if you have this result, this is the antioxidant that's recommended, and here is the dosage? Is that included?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't tell you that. It just tells you need them. You have to get that from me. Okay.
Okay. So to get that from you, based on, okay, so that would be something that you would determine based on the level, maybe the person's weight, age, is that what you're saying? And the level of oxidants in the urine? Okay.
Yes.
And so you would come up with a full program, is that it? Not only a supplement, but a program to, okay, here's what you need to do. All right. Very good. And to get that, they would call your office and make an appointment for a telephone consultation or a Skype consultation. Is that how?
Yeah, if they want my advice for that particular person, they'd have to have a consultation. Yeah, we can do it in a half hour.
Okay. 417-351-5221. Is that right?
Yeah, you've got it.
Your telephone number? Okay. 417-351-5221. Class is the telephone number to arrange for a telephone consultation with Dr. Shealy. So, Dr. Shealy, over the weekend, I decided to can some green tomatoes. Pickled canned green tomatoes. And I got to tell you, it is a labor of love. I was able to 13 and a half pounds of tomatoes. Now, without growing them, the time that was spent to get 7 quarts of pickled green tomatoes in the jars was 7 hours. 1 hour per jar. And Mrs. Finelli and I worked on it together. So that's 14 people hours to can 7 quarts, 7 jars. It's now that's the first time we did that kind of canning. So it probably took us longer than it would take an expert, but it is a labor of love. Would you agree with that, Dr. Shealy?
Yes, I've never done green tomatoes, so I don't know, but it certainly sounds like it.
Okay. Well, here's what we did. So I picked the tomatoes that I wanted, and they were large. You know, this large size of a baseball, at least. Washed them in cold water and cut out any spots that I didn't want, and sliced them. That would be east to west. So I had tomato slices like you might put on a hamburger, for example. Sliced them about a quarter of an inch thick at the most. And I sliced some onions, peeled the onions, and sliced some white onions, because that's what we had here. We aren't able to get whatever we want, so we didn't have any red ones. Happened to have some white ones, sliced some of those, and I layered into like a lasagna-type format into a pot, a stainless steel pot, some onions and some sliced green tomatoes, and I put kosher salt on each layer. And then more layers, more salt, more layers, more salt, and put them in the refrigerator overnight, 13 and a half pounds of just the tomatoes. And the onions were extra. And then I made a brine or a marinade of 1 part of apple cider vinegar, 2 parts of ProPure filtered water, put in some yellow mustard seeds, brown mustard seeds, some dill weed, some crushed red pepper, made the marinade, boiled it, brought it to a simmer, added the onions and the tomatoes until they turned from green to brown, and put them in the sterilized jars that I had in a canner, and canned them. And it was 7.5 hours total time to do 7 quarts. We'll be right back with Dr. Norm Shealy. Oh, I put a bay leaf in each one as well. Everyone all blissed? Hour number 2 of the USA Prepares with Dr. Norm Shealy, medical doctor. And Dr. Shealy, I was mentioning that I was pickling some tomatoes, and there's a medical reason why I'm discussing this, and I'll get to it in just a second. So when I pickled, just to recap, when I pickled these green tomatoes with onions with Mrs. Finelli over the weekend, here was the recipe I used. Now, don't necessarily follow what I did, because I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. So 13 and a half pounds of green tomatoes washed, and the spots I didn't want, I cut them out, and about 1.5 teaspoons of yellow and brown mustard seed, 1.5 teaspoons of black peppercorns, 6 bay leaves, 1 quart of apple cider vinegar with mother, 2 quarts of water, filtered ProPure water, 1.5 teaspoons of crushed red pepper, and made 7 quart jars. Now, I read a lot of books on canning. I've never done green tomatoes before. And I watched a lot of YouTube videos. What I found out was some people would say, oh yeah, this is my great-great-grandmother's recipe. You can add dill if you want. You can add mustard seeds if you want. You could add pepper. You could add onion. You could add, you could modify the recipes. Other sources says whatever you do, don't modify the recipe because you can make botulism and kill yourself. So it's just like the news today. Just as bad. You can't tell what's what. You can't tell what's true. And there are lots of methods of doing this. One method is you boil or you bring the marinade to a boil. Then you turn down the heat. Then you add the tomatoes, the green tomatoes and the onions. And you wait till the tomatoes turn yellow. And then you put them in the hot jars that have been sterilized. Some people say sterilize the jars once. Then all you need to do is wash them the next time. Others say you got to sterilize the jars every time. Some say you have to sterilize the lids. Sometimes they say you don't have to sterilize the lids. Sometimes just make the lid, the rubber seal soft. Others say just put it on. So it's really, really confusing. Just like reading the news. So the whole point of this is, you want to make sure that the lids go concave. Looking at it from the inside, when you seal them so that air doesn't get in them, they have an airtight seal that you want to make sure. And if there's any leakage, you need to worry about botulism. So that's where the medical question comes in. If these home canned jars had botulism, what would that mean, Dr. Shealy? Is botulism deadly? Is it something you can wipe off?
It certainly can be. Now, botulism is a very severe poison, essentially, to the gastrointestinal tract. It can cause vomiting, nausea, diarrhea.
How about death? Can it cause death?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a serious infection.
So that tells me that I should be really cautious about accepting a gift of canned or pickled anything from someone who, I'm thinking about Christmas gifts of years ago. Shouldn't I be concerned about those kinds of things?
Well, yes. I mean, if they know how they're canning, if you put them in theoretically, if you can them in a pressure cooker, you should should sterilize almost anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do have an all-American pressure cooker / pressure canner, but I didn't use that. I used the water bath. The water bath will not necessarily kill botulism, so you need to sterilize in advance. Okay, so all right, so these appear to be okay in terms of the lids, but does that mean that they're not necessarily okay?
Well, it means they're probably okay.
Okay.
So, from what you've told me about how you prepare them, it should be okay.
Okay. And does botulism live in low pH conditions? So, for example, one of the things I read about was you need to have the pH around 3.7. And if it's 3.7, likelihood of botulism living in that food is pretty low.
I think
so. Okay? So when you can, do you use pH test strips to see what the pH is? Because if you add onions, that changes the pH of the tomatoes. If you add vinegar at 1 part vinegar to 2 parts water, that changes the pH compared to 1 part vinegar, 1 part water. And if you add peppercorns, that changes it. If you add mustard, that changes it. And so what I read was, no matter if you modify the recipe substantially, you can kill yourself. That's what I learned, and it's complicated. This is not just art. This is science. This is biology, it's chemistry.
According to the internet, a pH of 4.6 or less is strong enough acid theoretically, to kill botulism.
Okay, 4.6. Okay, I read 4.2. I read 3.7. It's just like the news. And I bought a bunch of books, a bunch of old used books. And, I read a whole bunch. And then I said to Mrs. Finelli, the more I read, the more confused I am, the more complicated this is. So I had her read it. And then together we confused each other. And so I contacted Kathy in Ohio, sent her an email, and I said that, one recipe said you can add onions. Another recipe said don't even think about it. And the answer is you really need to go with approved recipes, ones that have been tested in the lab. So I really don't know. So we've got a call coming in, and maybe, hey, it's Sharon in Montana. And we're going to get some expert advice right here on canning from Sharon in Montana. Sharon, welcome.
Well, good morning. You got on my favorite topic, canning, so I thought I would call in for a second.
I'm so glad you
called.
Can you hear
me?
Yeah, I'm so glad you called because I am pretty well confused, more than usual.
I kind of feel like you're overthinking because you're being really cautious. If you're putting in a lot of acid like vinegar, it's hard to go bad and it will go moldy. You'll know it, and it'll stink. I think the one you want to be really careful about is anything that requires pressure canning, such as vegetables like beans or corn or meat. Those are the ones that it potentially could be bad and you wouldn't smell it or taste it. But most of your water bath stuff, you'll know it. You'll just know it. It'll taste off or it'll smell or it'll stink. But, as long as you have enough salt or you have enough vinegar or sugar, they're all kind of preservatives. And so anything you're pickling usually will have enough vinegar, or you can even use lime juice, or there's some other alternates, but most people go to vinegar. And you probably really don't have to worry about it. And if you're going to water bath it more than 10 minutes, you don't need to sterilize the jars. But you can always just sterilize them. And like for jams, it's ideal to sterilize them. But you can just sterilize them and then just tip them upside down on a kitchen towel I use my cookie sheets or lined cookie sheets, and I just tip them upside down, and you can just fill them as you need to, and then you can put them all, if you're going to water bath them, then you can water bath them. But everybody in the boat has some kind of expert advice, and I think people have been doing this for multiple years, and if you kind of use a common sense approach, that you probably aren't going to have any problems. My main concern is that people would try to water bath things that are like meat and vegetables that are super low acid, and you really could get sick. And there are some recipes, I think some of the Amish or Hutterite people some of the old ones still do that, where they cook it for an hour or 2 hours or something, but I personally would not trust that. I would definitely use a pressure canner and make sure you knock that out. But, and also I was going to tell you, the first time you do anything takes a long time, but you'll probably cut that down to, there's a certain amount of processing time you have to do, but you'll cut that down to where you'll whip those out in a whole lot faster than what you guys took.
I was thinking
a whole lot, because you'd never get hardly anything canned otherwise. Like I have probably over 2,000 jars canned down there. Okay, they're not in 1 year because I made jam and it's good for 3 or 4 years, and I can up meat and it's good for a long time. And I'm always taking advantage of whatever good deals I can get, and I freeze, but we do have 3 freezers, but they're full. And so I can, and then I dehydrate. I'm actually getting into dehydrating. In fact, right now I'm cooking down some carrots I was given. I'm going to dice them and dehydrate them, and then they'll just store really easily, and they reduce down. But once you get the system down, you'll be like, somebody will cut the onions, somebody will cut some tomatoes. You'll already have the water boiling. You got the jars in them. You pull them out, and you just kind of get a routine down to where you shorten that time considerably. But like the first time I made applesauce, it took me forever, but it does not take me forever now. So
yeah,
it's just a learning thing.
I said to Mrs. Finelli, it makes those $2 jars of pickles seem really inexpensive.
Of course, pickles can go pretty quick when you get them going. Okay, I usually sterilize my pickle jars too. I do, just because I don't want to get any kind of mold or any bacteria thing that I didn't notice. and then your pickles will mold, if you don't. But the vinegar in the jars, in theory, would kind of keep that at bay, but I usually just sterilize them. But I do something they don't highly recommend, but it's really quite easy. Like I said, I have these cookie sheets that have little edge along them, and I stack a whole bunch of jars in my oven, and I sterilize them that way. And then I am careful to take them out. They say they can shatter, but if you're not taking them out into a 30-degree room, they probably won't shatter, okay? And then they're already sterilized. So that way you don't have to have all that boiling water, because I get my stovetop too full if I'm doing 2 or 3 different things at one time. So it is possible to sterilize them in the oven. The only thing they warn you is that they can shatter. And like I said, the main reason they would shatter is because you have extreme temperature changes. Okay.
Sharon, let's ask Dr. Shealy a medical question about this. Dr. Shealy, and chemistry. Dr. Shealy, the reason for the pressure cooker / canner versus the water bath, is that because the pressure inside the vessel that you'd be using to heat the items you're canning is the reason that you raise the temperature higher than 212 degrees Fahrenheit at sea level? Is that the reason? Higher temperature?
Well, yeah, both the pressure and the temperature, it's like everything else. When you move your hand through the air, there's not much pressure. As you go faster, it feels like more pressure because you are pushing more air.
So are you saying that we are surrounding the jars with more pressure and higher temperature, which kills bacteria?
Yeah.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that why you do it as well, Sharon?
Well, I do it because they recommend it, and I don't want my family to get sick, but I've been canning for over 35 years. So you use... And nobody's ever gotten sick. And I'll let you get off. This thing's coming on, the music.
Yeah, okay, we'll be right back. And we've got another call on another line. We'll be right back. Class, Dr. Shealy's with us, Dr. Norm Shealy. Sharon's with us in Montana. Dr. Shealy's in Missouri. I'm in Missouri. Brett is on hold in New York. Dr. Shealy, I just wanted to mention that when I did the canning of these pickled green tomatoes, I didn't have all the ingredients. So I didn't have any polysorbate 80, and I didn't have any yellow dye, and I didn't have any blue dye. Do you think it'll be okay?
Oh, yeah, I doubt that those would make a difference.
Sharon, any comments?
I was going to say, if you first start canning, you probably are best off just following a known recipe. And the Ball Canning Cookbook has some really good recipes. Or somebody that you know really well that's canned a lot that might want to give you their variations. You can alternate a little bit, like if you put some peppercorns in or red pepper or something, that's not going to matter. You're talking infinitesimal amount. But I did have some friends who I gave my salsa recipe, and they decided to massively alter it and didn't put any vinegar in, and then they couldn't believe that it didn't work, and I'm thinking, well, the things that preserve the food is salt, sugar, and like vinegar, or if you use lemon juice or lime juice, that kind of thing. So you don't want to make radical variations, especially on water bath stuff. When you're pressure canning, you just pressure can it for the item that needs it the longest. So if you're making a vegetable stew.
Sharon, did you say sugar is a preservative?
Yeah, sugar
Did I hear that right?
Preserve. Yeah, like jams. You make jams. They don't normally go bad.
Well, I'm sorry. I was thinking about pickles or tomatoes.
Yeah, well, if you make sweet pickles, I make sweet relish. Okay. And so, but I also have vinegar in it. But water bath to me isn't near as dangerous as if you're working with pressure cooking, as far as making sure you have your times and pressure. Because anything I've ever water bathed, if it still happened to develop a tiny hole somewhere that I couldn't see, you can tell it pops up and it's not sealed. But, if you're not paying attention, I'm usually real careful. But if it does, you'll see it. It's moldy, it smells, it doesn't look right, the color's off. It's not something anybody with any common sense would try to eat. But, pressure canning to me, I've always been really careful. I actually run the pressure for sure. The length's usually another 5 minutes, just because I was raising 5 kids and I didn't want my kids getting sick, or myself.
That's what we did.
Yeah, you can make a little variations. I would just kind of stick with a kind of traditional recipe at first. And I wouldn't go crazy and think, oh, but I should add this and I should add that until you know what you're doing. Yeah. Yeah.
Sharon, thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, I'm going to let you go. You guys have fun. Keep canning though. You might really like it down the road. It is not, down the road you would not take near that amount of time to make that. Trust me. You'll figure out a lot faster. You're an efficient guy and you know, it's probably like the first time you changed your oil. It took quite a long time, but after that you whip it right out in a sense. I mean, I know you let yours drain longer, but while it's draining, you'll be doing other things.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know,
very good.
You learn to get more efficient.
Sharon, I appreciate your wealth of knowledge, and I just wanted to let you know that I get a lot of comments about you and Kyle and Joey, and so if you're wondering, you are well appreciated for your vast knowledge and your contributions to our class. So I just want to say thank you to you and Kyle and Joey.
Well, thanks. I love to do this, and I love to share it. I've had people come over, go to their house, and do it. I take great satisfaction at looking at all those little jars lined up on my shelf and knowing that we have food to eat. And just as a side note, I'm beating a drum to death, but if people can, go get extra food now. I just really believe you should. Anyway, thank you so much.
I agree. Sharon, thank you so much.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. That was Sharon in Montana. Brett in New York, you're on with Dr. Norm Shealy. Welcome.
Hey, this is Brett from New York. I called in last week.
Yeah. Welcome.
Actually, I was hoping to ask Sharon a question. I had a canning question because of the show, because of her and you. I started doing canning. I'm on my third batch, but the water's like boiling off in my jars, and I'm ending up with very little water at the end. And I was hoping to preserve, a lot of the juice in the canning jar, and I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or if I'm doing something right, and that normally happens.
Can you explain what you're saying?
Yeah,
I'm trying to understand.
Pressure canning.
Okay.
What's that?
Your pressure canning, and you've got your contents in jars, and you've got the lids on.
With the lid on and the cap on.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going through the process, doing like 75 minutes. Got some meats, got some vegetables in it.
Okay.
It's possible the vegetables are absorbing.
Okay, hold on. We'll be right back. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. Brett's with us in New York. And Brett, you're trying to can meat in a pressure canner. Dr. Shealy, do you have any thoughts about this? Because I have no experience.
Well, I've done lots
with
of
a pressure canner of meat.
And I've never had the volume decrease. Are you tightening the lids really good before you put it in?
No, not really tight. They say just finger tight.
Well, I don't know. I've always tightened them as tight as I can get them.
Okay.
But I can't. Otherwise, I would think you'd see the change in the water around if the liquid in the jars is disappearing. It's got to be in the surrounding water.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely in the surrounding water, yes. And that's what I'm wondering what I'm doing wrong.
I would just tighten the lids more.
Okay. I'll give that a try.
Yeah, let me know.
I'll tell you what,
that's one of the things I started doing because of listening to the show.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's do a special broadcast on canning, or a couple special broadcasts on canning. Would you like to see us do that? Because it is complicated.
It is.
It really is, especially for.
I do food dehydrating, and it's a total different. And as far as your pickles
let's
go,
do a special
do
broadcast.
You buy a mandolin? Do you use a mandolin, or you use a knife to cut your your tomatoes up?
I use a knife, and I use a stainless steel knife. I have my favorite knife, and it's got lots of wear on it. It's it's made by a German company, and it's an inexpensive one, maybe $2, plastic handle. But I have a sharpening stone, and I sharpen it every time when I need to cut precisely. And it has maybe a 3-inch blade, so it's not a long blade. And the reason I do that is I like that particular blade. And when I sharpen a blade, I wash and wash and wash that blade and that handle very, very well. Then I wipe it with a paper towel again and again and again to make sure there's no stainless steel particles nor sharpening stone particles on that blade. And I was thinking about all the times over the years I've been to a restaurant and they carve beef and the guy with the white hat and the costume on, is appearing to be the chef, takes that sharpening steel and he's sharpening that knife and doesn't wipe it off, and I'm eating those particles. So as I thought back about that, I want to make sure I don't do that anymore. So I don't eat out at restaurants.
The knife, by the way. Mm-hmm. That steel just knocks the burrs off.
Yeah.
That's why they send them
but some
out
of them
to
probably
sharpening service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What grit stone
but some of those burrs probably just hang on. I have a 2-part stone. I have a fine and I have a more coarse. And I don't know exactly. It's probably 6 inches in length, about maybe 2 3/4, 2.5 inches in width, and about 1 inch in depth. I bought it on the internet a couple decades ago, and I see that they're available, on eBay. So I, to be specific, I don't know. I don't know the brand name.
I have a dear
but that's
friend
what I do.
That makes violins from scratch, and he advised me. He makes his own tools and sharpens his own tools in his shop because he's 2 blocks of wood, planes them out, glues them together. That's the back. He starts carving it out, and he advised me to buy an 800, a 1200, and an 8000 grit, and you can sharpen your straight razor if you become proficient at it.
With the 8000?
Yes. Well, you work your way up. But you get a mirror finish.
Yeah, my grandparents used to shave with a straight razor, and all men did if they shaved back in the 1920s, and they used a leather strap for 2 things. Yeah, strop. That's what my grandfather used to call it, a strop. I thought he was mispronouncing strap. Yeah, and it sharpened the razors and created welts on the butts of misbehaving children. That's what it was used for.
Yeah. There's a thing they call, I think they call it the fence edge or something like that, and that's where when you sharpen on one side, you're actually pushing that very fine edge of the blade over to the other side, and that's why they use the sharpening steels to straighten that out. It's a quick way of straightening out the bend or the pushover, and you can do it on a car window, on the edge of a car window gently, different things like that, like a side window.
We'd have a class on that too. That's an interesting.
Well, that's why I went and I bought these stones, because down the road, you're not going to be able to send your knives out for a sharpening service. There's going to be nobody to send them to, and talk about having trades that are barterable. Hey, your hunting knife, you can't gut your deer because your knife's all dull. It's easier to get cut by a dull knife than a sharp knife. And so that's one service, to add on to the other things that I do.
Brett, thank you so much for your call. Dr. Shealy, sharpening instruments, surgical instruments.
I have never known of doing that. You in my experience, we always use the new blade every time.
Mm-hmm.
Who were the original surgeons?
Barbers.
Barbers, that's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. They were the only ones with the steady hand. And they knew how to sharpen a blade.
That's why a barber's pole, I don't even know if they have them anymore, but they were these cylindrical signs that would rotate, and many of them would rotate, and they would have red and white, and I guess white was for purity and red was for the blood. Right? No. Yeah, I'm serious about that. I'm serious about that.
I thought they were red and blue and white, but you could be right. I haven't seen one in quite a while.
Well, maybe the blue, if they had it, was what the patients would would turn if there were mistakes made.
And that was for when you eat the GMO food, that your blood gets all congealed and eating.
Brad, here's here's something interesting. You're talking about barbers and surgeons. And years ago, probably around, I'm thinking maybe the 1920s, maybe up to the 30s, that if you wanted to be a barber, you actually had to qualify. You actually had to not only take a test, but you had to prove proficiency. And one of the things that you had to do was shave a balloon with a straight razor.
Yes. Shaving cream balloon, yes.
Right. And if the balloon popped, that was the equivalent of F, grade of failure.
Yeah, there's a similar test many years ago, although everybody uses plastic now, but you had to caulk a joint with the lead and oakum, and if the joint leaked, then you failed the test.
That would be a plumbing test, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, plumb
but
as in
PB. Does lead and oakum anymore.
Yeah, PB is a symbol for lead in the periodic table. Brett, thanks so much for calling in.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Well, you and all the instructors are very much appreciated.
Well, Dr. Shealy has been with me the longest, absolutely the longest, and we certainly appreciate his 2 hours of devotion plus prep time every week. Brett, thank you again.
I told a friend that's having epilepsy problems, and that she could call in and speak to a doctor that's a homeopath, and of course she didn't ask me for the number.
That's an interesting thing. And I was going to say, we haven't heard from that person. I found that there are a whole bunch of people with all kinds of maladies, and it seems that there's some problem between the telephone and picking it up and making that call. I don't get it. Sometimes people say, I tried to call you. And my response is, did you pick up the phone? I mean,
yeah, I really tried, but I just couldn't pick that phone up.
Right. Brett, thanks again.
Maybe it's that one more.
That was Brett in New York. Dr. Shealy, food shortages. Sharon mentioned, get some more food. I'm paraphrasing. I absolutely agree. What are your thoughts? Do you think that we're going to have food shortages as well?
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
So, my standard answer is, if you live in a house, don't have a lawn, have a garden.
Right. Have a garden. And it's not easy. Class, I said that it took 7 hours to get 7 quarts of green tomatoes in the jar. And, of course, that, I'm not an expert. I don't think I'll ever be an expert, but I'm going to keep trying so that I'll try to be an expert. I'm not going to give up, but it'll get faster and faster and faster. But it is still, no matter how quickly I do it, it's still that 99-cent jar of pasta sauce is going to seem inexpensive compared to all of the labor that goes into canning and growing a garden. And I was out with Mrs. Finelli. We were tending the garden, weeding and watering and, picking out the weeds and those kinds of things. And I said, those tomatoes at the store seem really cheap compared to all this work. And that was weeks ago. Sharon, welcome back. Now with Dr. Norm Shealy.
Yeah, just real quick on the pressure canning. Usually the water comes out of the jar if you raise or lower the pressure too quickly. So if his pressure is jumping around from high to low while he's pressure canning, you'll lose moisture from your jars frequently. And you do want it not so tight that it can't let some out because it's going to kind of steam out a little bit. So you could potentially crack a jar if you tighten it down too tight. But he should probably watch to make sure the pressure is staying the same in his canner and then just let it come down naturally when he turns it off. And he probably won't lose too much liquid in the jar then.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Sharon,
Don't take the pressure thing off.
Go ahead, Dr. Shealy.
Let it go down by itself, yeah. Don't decompress it.
Sharon,
Uh-huh.
just so those of us who are trying to visualize this, I have not used a pressure canner. When compared to a water bath canner, there's a half an inch to an inch or so of water above the lid in a water bath canner. So you're literally kind of boiling the jars in water, completely surrounded, top to bottom, left to right, with a water bath canner. Is that the same with a pressure canner, or is there less water in a pressure canner?
Oh, no. I think they tell you put an inch. I never trust that because you have to vent it for 7 to 10 minutes. The steam comes out. I put my water in a pressure canner about halfway up the jar so that I don't run out of water, okay? But you don't put very much. They say an inch or something like that. But I probably put 2 just because I have had it one time steam out so much that there wasn't any water at the bottom, and you need the water to create the pressure, and there's steam pressure, you know. Mm-hmm. So I just put a little extra in there, but you don't cover them at all. It just goes up the jar.
Okay, that's a big difference. With the water bath canner, you cover the jar completely, plus a half an inch to an inch above the lid of the jar. With the pressure canner, you do not cover the jar completely. Okay, very good. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. Class, if you'd like to go to his website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, in the last segment, do you have any items that you'd like to make sure that we cover?
Nope, I'm open.
Okay. I've got a couple items that on my list for today, dealing with surviving, living through the corona panic and the COVID-19. Dr. Shealy, what are your recommendations regarding medical recommendations, personal recommendations, gut feelings, all of that rolled into one regarding going to the supermarket, going to the home repair store to get, lumber or whatever, for those home projects, the lawnmower repair items, as well as social distancing, traveling, public spaces. What are your thoughts on all of that? What are your thoughts
I think it's
to
all
survive this?
nonsense, of course, but if you live in Springfield now, you don't have any choice. They won't let you into Walmart without one. I don't know. I presume that all the stores are that way. I mean, theoretically, they've been ordered to do that. So I did go out and buy myself some masks.
I got an email.
If I have to go into a store, I will wear a mask.
Okay. I got an email from Sam's Club. We're a member of Sam's Club and have been for 27 years. And they said, we're delighted to have you be a customer. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. And we'll be glad to take your digits, but you got to wear a mask. I mean, that's what it says in this, roughly, I'm paraphrasing. And I'm looking at some images of people shopping at Walmart. And there are people who are wearing these plastic, it looks like a Halloween-type costume for a large child, a big bubble over the face like a face mask, and a hose, fake hose to an air tank with space boots. I mean, I see that. I see a woman riding one of those ride-around carts at that could be a man, it's hard to tell, with a bag over his face or her face, literally a plastic bag, which is crazy. Here's another woman. This is a woman. I can tell it's a woman wearing men's underwear on her face. Jockey shorts. I see, another guy wearing, baby diapers across his face. I see another guy wearing a motorcycle helmet. I see another guy wearing a bag, like from McDonald's, a brown paper bag with eye holes in it. Another guy's wearing a cereal box over his face. Another guy is wearing, an air cleaner. And I mean, literally an automotive air cleaner from the 1960s, a big round air cleaner with a chrome top and, a snorkel to, tubes to a respirator. Another person, I can't tell whether it's male or female, wearing a rectangular tote. I'm talking about, maybe, 12 inches depth, 2 feet across and 2 feet tall with a hole cut in the bottom, with the lid on it. And I see another person with an umbrella and a huge garbage bag coming all the way down to the floor. I see another guy, those floating, it's actually pipe installation, multicolored, orange and green and blue and red, and, that noodles, they call them, for a pool, Well, this guy made a halo, and the noodles are sticking out 3 feet in every direction. And you can't get near this guy because you'll walk into his noodles coming out of his head. Another guy is wearing sanitary napkins on his face. So people are doing all kinds of things. And what I think they're trying to tell people is this is ridiculous. I think that's what they're saying. So what do we do, Dr. Shealy? Do we avoid going shopping, or do we carry on as normal?
Well, if possible,
what kind of cautions?
I plan on not doing any shopping. I prefer to go to Fair Grove. I can walk into that grocery store without a mask.
Okay, well, all right. And so we don't know if Missouri has locked down to masks or whether it's just Springfield, right? Do you think it's just Springfield?
Well, we know that Springfield's locked down and masked.
Yeah. Okay. And gloves too, or no?
If you have a medical condition, I mean, like if you already have lung disease, for instance, wearing a mask is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So we will
because of the rebreathing of carbon dioxide. Is that what you mean?
It lowers your oxygen saturation.
Yeah. Right.
So we do give appropriate medical exemptions.
I'm wondering, Dr. Shealy, when the people who are protesting are going to wake up and say, it was a Chinese that did this. This thing got out of a lab, and we should start boycotting all Chinese products. I wonder why that hasn't happened.
Well, because it's being run by stupid people.
Yeah. Class, I suggest you consider not buying anything from China. Don't feed the beast. Don't feed the beast. Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for being with us today. Oh, one last question. Are you concerned about LED lights with in the house emitting ultraviolet rays that damage eyes? Is that a concern?
No. I've got almost exclusively LED lights in my house.
Yeah. Here's Dr. Shealy. NormShealy.com. Thank you, Dr. Shealy.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.